Hey everybody, welcome to another action figure unboxing and review. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Neca Ultimate Dungeons & Dragons Grimsword. These figures are based on the LJN figures of the 80s, and I didn't collect those, and I wasn't even into Dungeons & Dragons in the 80s, but I did get into it in the 90s, the tabletop pen and paper version, as well as the video games. I played Eye of the Beholder and Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, and Planescape Torment. And, been playing D&D in the video game world, anyway, off and on ever since. Haven't tried Baldur's Gate 3 yet, but I hear it's fantastic, and it actually won Game of the Year, so I'm even more interested in trying it now. I also was a big fan of the novels that they released I started reading them in the 90s, but some of them they released in the 80s. I only read a couple of the Forgotten Realms and one of the Ravenloft, but Dragonlance was my bread and butter. And I would love if Neca were to do a Ultimate series on the Dragonlance figures. I would love to get an Ultimate Tanis Half-Elven or Stern Brightblade, Kitiara, Raistlin, Ariakis, Verminard, all those guys. I would love to get them all in 1/12 scale. That would be fantastic. And if Neca were to create the dragons too, that would be even better. I'd love to get a Sky or a Pyros or a Cyan Bloodbane, 1/12 scale dragons. Those would be fantastic. Expensive, but worth it. So, these figures, the LJN ones, are based on, I'm not sure what Grimsword is from. I think Warduke is from Greyhawk. If you don't know anything about Dungeons & Dragons, they have different worlds, like Forgotten Realms is one world, Dragonlance is another, Greyhawk is another, and then there's Ravenloft, Dark Sun, Alcadine, Karator. Actually, I might have pronounced that one wrong. There is an Asian-themed world. I can't remember the name of it. Karator doesn't sound right. I'm probably wrong about that. Anyway, I'm not sure where Grimsword is from. He might be from Greyhawk as well, like Warduke. I don't know if he was in the cartoon. I know Warduke was, but I'm not sure about Grimsword. But we're going to be looking at Grimsword today. Warduke we will discuss in a future video. And we also have Zarek and Strongheart to round out the 4 that have been released thus far by Neca. Now, I don't normally do unboxings because they take longer, and it's a pain to get that stuff out on camera. It's easier just to have it all ready to go when I'm doing the video. But because of the way Neca packages their figures, I feel that doing it a disservice not to do the unboxing, because otherwise when I open this flap here, you'll just see an empty window. So I think this looks better this way. So we will look at the box first. As you can tell, I've already shown you the flap opens, but anyway, there's some nice artwork here on the front. Dungeons & Dragons Grimsword Ultimate action figure. He is an evil action figure. And then you got more of the logos and everything on the top here. There's some little warning choking hazard. You got some more stuff on the bottom. This is something that Neca does that I wish more action figure lines would do. They show you everybody who was involved in the creation of this figure, which I think is fantastic. So you know who does the sculpt, you know who did the paints, you know who did the prototype, the photography, you know who designed the packaging, and you even know who drew the cover illustration. So Daniel Horn fantastic artwork, my friend. I really like this drawing. Then you have a picture of the figure itself on the side. Grimsword Ultimate Action Figure. Then on this side, Dungeons & Dragons, Grimsword again. Picture of his head. And then on the back you have some photography of the figure. A couple shots and a blurb. I'm not going to read it, but I'll stick it there so you can pause if you want to read it yourself. And this shows you everything he's included with. And then also available Warduke. And there is Warduke, and we will see him in a different video. And then once you open the flap, you get another picture of the figure standing in front of the backdrop that he comes with. And then there's the figure himself. So let's go ahead and get that out. And as you can see, he does come with this backdrop. You can take it out. And you can use it for figure displays. This is another nice touch that Neca does, including little dioramas like this that you can use for figure photography. I think it's a great idea. I also think more action figure lines should copy that. I think Neca does a lot of things that action figure lines should copy. Now, this is an on-camera unboxing, but it's not an original unboxing. I've already been through and taken this figure out and everything, and I did that for the other three as well, just to cut down on time, so I don't have to sit here snipping the plastic ties and whatnot and pulling tape off. So everything's already ready to go. All I have to do is just lift it out of the package. And Grimsword came out, he and Warduke came out near the beginning of, I almost said this year, but it's 2024 now, so it's actually the beginning of last year. So I've had, this is loud, I've had him for a while, him and Warduke. I only got Zarek and Strongheart. I keep wanting to call him Stern because I'm used to Dragonlance, but I had Zarek and Strongheart within the last couple months, so they're more recent. So I've only taken them out of the box to take a look at them and make sure that they're in good shape and whatnot. But other than that, I haven't done anything with them. So there we go. Plastic tray is all empty. Now we can look at Grimsword. Okay, now Neca figures, well, these figures in particular, and the Predators as well, but I'm not sure about I think all Neca figures are 7 inches. They're 1/12 scale, but a little bit bigger than classified Marvel Legends and Black Series. 1/12 scale is weird. It kind of goes between 6 and 7 inches, and even some of the so-called 6-inch figures go below. Some of the shorter female figures in the Legends line are in the 5-inch range, the 5-inch plus, but still less than 6 inches. But in fact, he's probably bigger than 7. I don't have a tape measure. I don't do that on my channel. Measure the figures like some people do, but he's probably over 7 inches, if I would have to say. This is a pretty solid figure. If you've ever had a Neca figure before, you know that they have a reputation for making really detailed, well-painted figures, as well as their figures being pretty solid, but also they have a reputation for their figures breaking easily because, some people move them in ways they're not meant to be moved, or try to move them without warming them up first or whatnot. In fact, I had a mishap with this is my second Grimsword. My first Grimsword, I was working the articulation on his foot, just like this, and it snapped off on my hand. And I was so shocked that the figure tumbled out of my hand entirely, landed on the floor, and the other foot snapped off. But luckily enough, the place I bought him from here in the UK, I know the guy that runs the place fairly well, and he was kind enough to send me another one, and I shipped him back the broken one, which I'm sure he probably sent back to Neca and got his money back for that. At least I'm hoping that's what happened. But yeah, my War Duke also met with an accident, unfortunately, which I will show you when we do the War Duke video. But his accident was less like debilitating. Like having 2 feet break off is kind of you can't really fudge that. But War Duke's mishap was a little bit more forgivable. I didn't bother getting him replaced because that was my fault. It wasn't a design defect. Like, I think my original Grimsword's feet were just, the peg was just defective because it really just snapped easily. This one, as you can see, I'm moving it quite well. It's not having any issues, but the previous one just snapped right in my hand. Anyway, you can see, just on the head alone, there's already quite a bit of paint. And one of the best things about the NECA figures here is the wash that they use to bring out all the details. A good wash goes a long way. I think a lot of those G.I. Joe classified figures, as great as they are, would look so incredible if they just put a wash on some of them in some places, just to make the details stick out more. I mean, look at that gauntlet. It's plastic, but it looks metal, you know? It looks so good. All it takes is a nice coat of paint and a good wash. And the details really bleed through, you know? But this guy's heavily detailed. The individual cuts here on the scale mail on his arm there, both arms, as well as on his upper legs. And then he's got the plate over it right there. He's got I mean, look at it. This looks like this guy it looks weathered. It's well weathered. It looks worn. This guy didn't just walk out the door of the armor shop with armor he just bought today. He's worn this for years. He's been in a lot of battles with this. He's seen some stuff, you know. And that snake motif, that's a running motif with Grimsword, you'll see. Coiled all the way around his waist there, kind of cool. And he's got another snake there on his knee. This knee pad's got the point. Got those plate boots. Everything is nice and painted. The buckles all painted. The straps are brown. And it's got silver on the buckles and everything. It's got silver rivets in the knee joints. Buckles painted on his gloves. It's incredible. And to think that this is only like a $35 figure. That's pretty good. I mean, you've seen the G.I. Joe Classify, what you get for $35 for their deluxe, like Snow Job, for instance. He was a deluxe figure. He was $35. And do you think he was anywhere near as well painted or detailed as this guy? I don't. And they came with roughly a similar amount of accessories. I mean, this Snow Job had an extra head, but this guy has a ton of extra hands. So I don't know. I think Hasbro could do a lot more. Neca is showing exactly what you can do for $30, $35, and it's quite a lot. So, like I said before about the box, and the diorama, there's a lot of things that other toy companies could learn from Neca. One of the things about the head here is you can move these. They move all the way around. I probably could have waited until articulation to show that off, but yeah. And speaking of articulation, let's go into that right now. Now, one thing that is a drawback about Neca is their figures have a lot less articulation than most, but they're designed more as like display pieces rather than actual action figures. I mean, they move, so they're technically action figures, but you don't give this to a 5-year-old to play with, put it that way. This is something that an adult collector buys, puts on display somewhere in his house, maybe takes some pictures of it for Instagram or something like that, does a review about it like this for YouTube, then sticks them in a cool display and puts them on a shelf with some nice lighting and just something that catches people's eyes when they come in the room, you know. So his head articulation is pretty good, considering he's wearing a full helmet. He can look up about that far, and he can pretty much bury the bottom of his helmet. And like I mentioned before, these move. So this is his default display, I believe. If you look at the box here, he's got them pointed down just like that. So that's the default. But you can have, if you want, you can have them going around like that. So it's up to you. He can do the Exorcist. Yeah. And he's got a lot of tilt. It's almost like he's on a bobblehead. It's not that loose, don't worry. This shoulder piece right here kind of gets in the way of his right arm articulation. You can go all the way around, but you gotta like stick the arm out to get it around the edge there. But here, I'll show you on this arm, you can go all the way around. You can get his arms up in a nice T-pose. He does have a bicep cut on both sides. He only has single jointed arms. There's way too much stuff here to get any kind of use out of a double joint. Yeah, that arm doesn't want to bend. Yeah, this one will bend. And it does hinge in and out. So you don't get double joint, but you do get the hinge, so that's nice. And his left arm has the horizontal joint, and as does his right arm. Not much movement in the waist. I don't even think he has any kind of a joint in the torso. I think the torso is just solid plastic because this snake pretty much canceled any type of articulation you could probably have there. But he can turn at the waist. He does not have much tilt. A little bit. Okay. He can, despite not having drop down hips, he can split out pretty well. And the reason for that is because of this piece right here kind of hanging down, and because of the scale mail, the design of the scale mail, it kind of hides the joint well enough that they can cut deeper around the thigh. See, normally if your legs are going to be on display, you're not going to cut it that deep because then it'll show. But as you can see, you can't tell. when he's just standing. But obviously if you move it around, then you can see how deep it is in there. But yeah, as you can see, there's not anything there to stop articulation of his legs. That's why he's able to get such a wide pose, because it's really cut deep in there. He can only kick out about that far, but if you kind of like twist the thigh up a little bit, then you can get him to kick out a little bit more. He can kick out quite a bit far, or quite far. Yeah. He does not have a upper thigh cut because of how wide that hip joint is. You can get, instead of a thigh cut, you can just turn it from the hip joint. So rather than have a thigh cut, you got that rotating hip joint there. He does have a knee joint though that you can turn, but it's part of the hinge for his single jointed leg. And he doesn't get a lot of bend on his knees or elbows because of the armor pieces here. Now they're made of a soft like rubber type rather than hard plastic like the plates up here, but they still prevent you from getting too much bend out of them, because after all, you don't want to like crush the rubber bits. You don't want to bend them in so they look terrible. So he's got the single joint there, but it can swivel. And then his foot goes back about that far, goes forward about that far. It's got rocker and pegs on the bottom. Now, out of the box, he comes with these two kind of open hands. Kind of like choking hands. They're not really gripping hands because you can't really grip anything with these. Anything will just fall right out if you try to put it in there. Although you could probably use this hand for his shield. But he also comes with a bunch of other hands. And I just dropped a weapon. Okay. So he comes with 3 other sets of hands. He comes with a pair of fists. And again, these are so well painted. Man, I really love that. Really brings out the detail. It's fantastic. He also comes with these pointing hands. I could put these on and be like, "What you gonna do, brother?" And these hands, I have to say, are really, really tight. So if you want to move the fingers around, like get a weapon in there, you might want to heat them up first and loosen them up a bit. Because otherwise you're going to get indentations in your fingers when you're trying to move them around. And lastly, he's got a pair of gripping hands. And these are what you're going to want to use when you're putting weapons on him. And speaking of weapons, actually, you know what? I'm going to do the shield first. He comes with a shield, which, again, so well detailed, so well painted, so well washed. It's got that great-looking snake on the front there with the tongue sticking out. And just on the shield itself, you got all this black paint, you got this red paint, this gold paint here, the green paint on the snake itself, red on the tongue, his eyes, more gold on the eyebrows. Just so much paint for such a... I mean, this is a pretty big accessory, but still. Yeah, it looks really cool. And on the back, I mean, look at that. It looks like it's made of wood, but it's actually plastic. It's incredible how they do this, you know. Actually, I think it's plastic. It might actually be wood. I'm not sure. But it looks nice. It looks weathered. I mean, just look at that. They do such a good job at painting in Neca. And the straps look leather. They look like they're made of leather. It's just very well done looking shield. He also comes with this sword. It's a nice curved blade there. If the camera will focus. Camera, focus. Wow, doesn't want to focus today. All right, there we go. Nicely painted blade there. Nice curve with a notch right about there. And then you get the hilt. It's got red paint there, and then gold in the handle, or in the pommel. Then it's got some red there. You can see a little bit of paint slop there, but, you know, if that's all the paint slop I can get on this entire figure, that's not bad. And then, of course, gold paint on the hilt, or on the tip of the handle. So, pretty nice looking sword there. And when he doesn't have that in his hand, he can slide that into the snake tail there, kind of like a makeshift sheath, which is kind of cool. And lastly, he comes with this ball and chain. So it's got this nicely detailed spiked ball on the end. And these are pretty sharp. Like, they're not sharp to the point where you're gonna, like, accidentally stab yourself. But if you drop this on the floor and don't realize it, and then go walking around barefoot, this will hurt you. If you think stepping on a Lego is bad, this thing will probably draw blood. The chain is plastic. I couldn't tell for a second there, but yeah, this is plastic. It's not metal, but it still looks pretty nice. And then the handle itself is really cool. Again, with the snake motif, nicely painted and detailed. It's got that tongue sticking out, those red eyes, and more gold on the bottom here. And I believe this weapon was similar to the one he had, the LJN figure, originally, in the 80s. Like I said, I don't have that figure, so I don't have comparison shots, but I have seen it. So I'm pretty sure he did come with this weapon originally there, too. So, I'd kind of want to get him all geared up, but I will say that probably the best way to display him is with the sword in the sheath. Like, if you want him to carry everything, you're gonna have to put the sword away, because he doesn't have any space for the mace, or the ball and chain, rather. The flail. I think that's what it's technically called, it's a flail. I put the wrong hand on to grab the shield. But this is just a really fantastic figure. And you can probably still pick one up, even though he came out early last year. I'm sure he's still readily available, because NECA, for some reason, does not sell out as frequently as other action figure lines, even though they should. They're that good. Getting them to stand is not always the easiest thing, but you can find the sweet spot eventually. But they do fit on stands as well, so if you get any stand that made for like 7-inch figures. I think they'll fit on like the McFarlane multiverse stand, so stuff like that. But there you have Grimsword. Really, really cool looking figure. One of my figures of the year last year. One of the best figure looking figures. In fact, I'd go so far as to say, as much as I love Classified and I'm enjoying everything they're doing with that line, I think the NECA D&D figure line is the best figure line on the market at the moment. Just the amount of detail, the number of accessories, the paint, just everything about these guys. It's like the only thing that Classified really does better is the articulation. So Classified is a close second, but I think this line right here is the number one line on the market at the moment. And when I say that, I mean the number one, like, I don't want to say cheap, but affordable. There we go. The number one affordable line in the moment, because Mezco's G.I. Joe offerings have been fire so far. Destro and Roadblock were incredible figures. And I can't wait for Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and Firefly in them. So those are probably my favorite figures of all. But they're also premium, much more expensive figures. So for an affordable line, this is the best, I believe. Anywhere between $30 and $40 a pop, which isn't too bad considering the amount of stuff you get and the paint and detail. I think that's a pretty good deal, considering that Legends and Black Series and Classified are all in the mid to upper 20s right now. So they're not that far behind NECA in price, but NECA still blows them out of the way in detail and paint. So definitely my favorite line going right now in the affordable category. So comment down below, like and subscribe. Next review I'll be doing is Warduke. So stick around for that. That one will be coming in a few days, and I'll see you then.